The sound of the motorcycle roared through the small town, echoing against the quiet streets that hadn't changed much in 5 years. But the man riding it had. His name was Ryan Cooper, a man hardened by the road, with dust on his jacket and miles of memories behind his eyes. He never thought he'd return, not after the fight he had that night with his mother. But something inside him had pulled him back, a whisper of guilt, a longing to make things right. Ryan slowed as he entered the familiar town. The bakery was still on the corner, the same rusted bus stop stood outside the old school. But what caught his eye wasn't nostalgia. It was a woman through the window of a diner, wiping tables, with a tired look on her face. She moved slowly, her back slightly bent, her hands red from years of hard work. He froze. It couldn't be, but it was his mother. The sight hit him like a punch to the chest. His mother, the proud woman who used to bake his favorite pies, who told him he could conquer the world, now working at a diner in a faded uniform. She looked older, frailer, her hair sprinkled with more gray than he remembered. Guilt burned inside him. He had left after a terrible argument. He wanted to chase freedom, to ride across states, to live life on his own terms. She had begged him to stay, cried that he'd lose himself on the road. He had shouted back, told her she was holding him back. Then he left. He hadn't looked back since. He parked his bike across the street, his hands trembling as he took off his helmet. The rumble of the engine faded, leaving only the soft hum of the town around him. Through the diner window, he watched her work, wiping one table after another, smiling weakly at customers, hiding the exhaustion in her eyes. Ryan swallowed hard, trying to gather the courage to walk in. When he finally pushed open the door, the bell above jingled. His boots hit the tiled floor as he approached the counter. His mother didn't notice him at first. She was busy, pouring coffee for an older man. When she turned around, the cup nearly slipped from her hand. Her eyes widened, the same deep brown eyes that had once held both anger and love. "Ryan?" she whispered. "Hi, Mom," he said softly, his voice cracking. For a long moment neither moved. The years that had built walls between them suddenly crumbled in silence. Tears welled in her eyes as she set the coffee pot down and slowly walked toward him. Then she reached out and touched his face as if to make sure he was real. "You came back," she said, her voice trembling. He nodded, barely able to speak. "I'm sorry, Mom, for everything, for leaving like that, for not calling." She didn't let him finish. She just pulled him into her arms. It was the same embrace that had comforted him as a child, warm, steady, and full of forgiveness. They sat down in a corner booth. Ryan looked around the diner, then back at his mother. "Why are you working here?" "What happened to the house?" She smiled faintly. "After you left, things got hard. The bills piled up. I sold the house and moved into a small apartment. This job helps me get by. It's not much, but it keeps me busy." His throat tightened. "You shouldn't be working like this." She shrugged. "We do what we must. Life doesn't wait for anyone, not even mothers." Her calm acceptance made his guilt even heavier. He had been chasing sunsets while she was struggling to survive. He remembered the nights he'd slept under the stars, free but lonely, always, hearing her voice in the wind, always pushing away the urge to turn back. Now, sitting across from her, he realized freedom had cost him too much. Over coffee, they talked for hours. She told him about the town, how it had changed, who had moved away, who had stayed. He shared his stories from the road, the people he met, the lessons he learned, and the emptiness that followed every goodbye. The anger between them faded, replaced by understanding. But Ryan couldn't leave things as they were. That night, after walking her home, he saw her tiny apartment, one bedroom, a small kitchen, and a flickering light bulb above the stove. She smiled proudly, as if it were a palace, but Ryan's chest ached. He knew what he had to do. The next morning, he visited a local garage. With his savings from years of working on bikes and traveling gigs, he decided to start something new right here in his hometown. A motorcycle repair shop. He named it Mary's Garage, after his mother. He wanted her name to shine again, not behind a diner counter, but on a signboard above a place built with love and redemption. When he took her there a few weeks later, she stood in front of the shop, with tears streaming down her face. "You did this?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He nodded. "For you, Mom. For everything you gave up for me. I want you to stop worrying. I'm home now." She hugged him tightly, her hands trembling. "You always had a good heart, Ryan. You just needed to find your way back to it." As the sun set behind the town that evening, the sound of engines filled the air. Locals came by, curious about the new garage. Some recognized Ryan, some didn't, but everyone could see the pride in Mary's eyes as she stood beside her son. The days turned into weeks, and the garage became a small success. Ryan hired a few local kids, teaching them how to fix bikes, giving them hope and purpose, something he wished he'd had when he was younger. His mother no longer worked at the diner. She spent her mornings at the shop, serving coffee and smiling as she watched her son work. One evening, as they sat outside, watching the sunset paint the sky orange, Ryan looked at his mother and said, "I used to think freedom was out there on the road, but it's right here, with you." She smiled and placed her hand over his. "Home isn't a place, Ryan. It's the people who wait for you to return." And in that moment, after 5 long years, Ryan Cooper finally found what he'd been searching for all along, not the thrill of the open road, but the peace of coming home. Moral: sometimes the greatest journey isn't the one that takes us far away, but the one that leads us back to where love never left.